During the backswing, I would like for you to turn your hips, but not shift them at all away from the target. I'd like for you to turn them, but don't shift at all away from the target. Now during the downswing, there should be turn and shift. So follow me here. Backswing, turn, don't shift. I'll explain more as we go. Downswing, turn and shift. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Hey guys, just want to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Municipal. You guys see me wearing the hats and the shirts in all of these videos. They've been a great partner for us, and I absolutely love all of the clothing, and really they're just getting better and better and better. They're dropping new gear all the time. Some of it's in limited quantity, so if you want to go check that out and you like it, make sure you grab that right away. They've got a new line of golf apparel coming out, but they don't have just the golf stuff. I'm also wearing the Municipal things really everywhere. I wear the shorts and t-shirts to the gym. The hoodies that they have are like the most comfortable thing, the hoodies and the sweatpants. So it's really stuff that I can wear and you can wear when you're going to play golf, but it's also casual. I mean, I could leave the golf course, be at home, go to the gym. Absolutely love the Municipal gear. If you haven't tried any of it before, grab a polo, grab a Municipal hat. You're gonna absolutely love their gear. We'll put the link in the description down below. All right guys, so in today's video, we're gonna talk about how to turn and not shift in the golf swing. This has been coming up in so many of our online lessons, and it's something that I really had a hard time with growing up, and it's the idea of how do I use my turning and my shifting in the swing. Most players that I see struggle during the backswing with having too much shifting with their hips and lower body and not enough turning. Now here's the mantra I want you to live with, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by this with a model, and then we'll come in, I'll show you how to practice it. During the backswing, I would like for you to turn your hips, but not shift them at all away from the target. I'd like for you to turn them, but don't shift at all away from the target. Now during the downswing, there should be turn and shift. So follow me here. Backswing, turn, don't shift. I'll explain more as we go. Downswing, turn and shift. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so Mr. Patrick Cantlay we have here from Face On. I'm gonna draw a line down his right hip. Now, he's hitting a 6-iron here. Now watch during the backswing how that line, he never crosses. So when I'm saying don't shift, what I'm talking about is like don't shift your hips or your like the actual mass of your hips to the right. There's gonna be a little bump in the pressure in his feet, but there should be no shifting off the ball. I see a lot of amateur players do the shift. They would go way to the right of that line, and I'll explain why that's important. So turn, don't shift on the way back. Now if I draw that same line at the top, he doesn't just turn on the way down, now he'll turn and shift. And that's gonna be important for low point and swing path, which I'll show you. So you see the difference there? If you draw a line up your right leg at setup, you should stay inside of that with some hip turn. And then if you draw a line down your left leg or your lead leg at the top, you shouldn't turn inside of that, you should move forward of that. Let me explain why that's important. Okay, so most players that I'm seeing and working with, you know, that shoot that 75 to 100 range, that struggle with contact and consistency, what they struggle with is the hips end up moving too far to the right away from the target. And anytime your hips are moving too far this way, very difficult to turn with that. So what we want to do instead of the swaying too much is learn how to turn your hips much more centered. So if I drew that line up my hip, I should be turning inside of it. Now, all things equal, I like a player to just turn just barely inside of it, create about an inch or so of space, and that inch or so of space is happening from the turning. So notice as I turn my hips back, that's what's creating the space. My hips aren't really working forward, they're not working back, they're staying fairly centered, but I'm creating space with the turn on the way back. How I like my players to work on this is to have an object by their right hip. I just pulled my golf bag in, put my driver about an inch to the right of my hip at setup, and essentially I want you to not hit that on the way back. Now, why is that important? Well, where your hips are at are gonna control several things. One is low point, so your ability to hit the ball solid. And number two is swing direction. So think about it this way. Remember our mantra, turn, don't shift on the way back, then turn and shift on the way through. So what does that control? Well, low point, the more back my hips go away from the target, the more back my low point is. That means that increases the odds of solidness of contact. The more forward my hips are, the more forward my low point is. That helps me hit the ball first, ground second, better contact. The other part is swing direction. The more back my hips are at any point, the more my club path works to the left. That'd be like pulls and fades. The more forward my hips are, the more my club path works from in to out, which would be like high draws. So the hips staying more centered and working more forward would help you with contact and also help get rid of any pulls and fades, would help you draw the ball and hit it higher and farther. So when we set up, I like to have the object here for the backswing part 1 inch away, like I said. And the first thing I want you to be able to do, if you're doing too much of the shifting, is learn how to keep your hips inside of this. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate one. So let's keep my hips just inside of the chair on the way back. And let's go ahead and have a look at what that looks like. Okay, so here's me swinging with the chair. Now my tendency, if anything, is to be a little bit too far inside of it, but let's see here. This is just with a 7-iron. What I should be able to do is keep my hips just inside of that. So see how I just created, maybe an inch of space there with my hips. So my hips stay very centered relative to where the golf ball is at. And that's gonna help me have my club path be neutral, move my low point ahead of the golf ball on the way through. See how that low point was 3.3 ahead. Now, let's see what happens when I make a swing and I have my hips too far back. So if I'm gonna make the same swing, but instead, let's say I do what I see a lot of you guys doing, is hips too far to the right, this should move my low point back and my club path even more to the left. So my path was 1.6 left, my low point was 3.3 ahead. Let's see with a bigger bump to the right here, what happens with that. I'm gonna exaggerate. So that would be me feeling like my hips went very far back. Now look at the difference there. Now I still got my low point ahead, but look how far back the club path was. Let's have a look at that one. So now if I pull this same part up here by my hip, we're gonna see how far to the right my hips go. Now, for me, that felt extremely exaggerated. I need a little bit of that because I can overdo the other way. But you see how my hips went too far to the right and how that made my club path work more to the left for those pulls and fades. Okay, so while I was able to still get my low point forward, I'm telling you, you gotta trust me on this. I see that 5 to probably 10 times a day where when the hips move too far to the right, we're gonna struggle with some fats and thins. Now, the backswing obviously is only one part of this. I wanna stay centered without any shifting, and a lot of this happens when the players feel like, and I think the root of this is we feel like we need to get this shift going. We feel like we need to shift back to get power. But what really good ball strikers do is they shift pressure in their feet. So as my hip stays inside the chair, I'm still shifting some pressure in my feet relative to where I started. There's a little pressure more in my right foot. It's on the inside part of my foot as my hip turns around. But the mass of my hips don't go to the right. And I think us trying to have so much shift or making sure we shift off the ball has led to those hips too far to the right, which leads to these problems. Now, like I mentioned, the backswing part 1, we still have to learn to get through the ball. Let me show you how to do that next. Okay, back to Patrick Cantlay here. We have the line on the hip at the top. Now the second part of this is how far forward do we need to get with the hips on the way through? So we said on the way through we need the turning and the shifting. So there's the line on his hips. Now let's see where he actually gets to. You see he pushes his belt buckle quite forward, right? So how I would look at this as a stock is if I drew the line up just on the outside part of his foot and I put an object there, that's about how far forward you want to get the hips. And the point of getting it forward is to have that club path be in to out. See how its club path is 4 to the right. And the low point ahead, he's 4.8 ahead. So that's about the amount of shifting that we need to have on the way down. Let's talk about how to do that. Second part of this would be ensuring that we still get the forward motion. What I like to do is just flip the practice station. So you take your same golf bag, just use your driver or club here in front. And basically what you want to have is kind of have this object of the wall right on the front part of your foot. So if I look at the outside of my pinky toe and draw a straight line up, that's about where the wall would be or where this object is. Of course, put it far enough back we won't hit it with your hands. But the point is, I should be able to push my hips or belt buckle to the point where I feel that on my quad with my hips fully turned. Remember, the downswing, it's not just shift, it's turn and shift, right? You should have this written down on like a legal pad or something now. It's backswing, turn, don't shift. Say it with me, downswing, turn and shift. right? And we turn and shift to move the low point forward and to have the club path be neutral. So let me go ahead and demonstrate one of these here. And for me, I just feel like I'm pushing my belt buckle forward into that. That's the goal. Not the left hip, pushing the belt buckle up and forward. So turn, don't shift on the way back. Turn and shift on the way through. That felt like I was able to get my belt buckle up to the chair on the way through. Solid 7-iron, club path 0.4, low point 2.9 ahead. Just maybe a 15-yard pull, solid shot. So that's how I want you to control the hip motion. I'll spare you and I won't say that mantra again, but hopefully you wrote that down and you understand, like the players that I work with, which I hope that you take advantage of that, right? You'd be able to try the lessons for free, just try it for free. A lot of the people have these issues that struggle with solid contact, that struggle with pulls and fades. Very rarely do I see a player stay centered with the hips and then push them adequately forward, not hit the ball pretty good, and hit the ball fairly straight with slight draws. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions on this. You guys enjoyed the video. It would help us if you click that little like button. Always subscribe. Helps the channel as well. And like I said, if you have any questions down below, hips or anything else, leave a comment. Would love to continue the conversation there.